space was never truly silent, but tonight, it felt that way. A heavy, waiting quiet stretched across the starry gulf, broken only by the whisper of ion trails and the distant hum of reactors. The Imperial fleet hovered at the edge of the Terran system, black silhouettes against the endless dark. Thousands of ships floated in perfect, predatory formation, destroyers lined like teeth, carriers flanking like vultures, their fighters buzzing restlessly in containment bays. It was not a patrol. This was an execution force. Admiral Kale Varric stood alone at the observation deck of the Hegemony Sphere, his four mirrored eyes fixed on the distant blue jewel that was Earth. The flagship's interior lighting cast pale silver across his chitinous armor, giving him the look of a statue carved from obsidian. The holomap projected before him showed the system's planets, labeled in imperial glyphs, Earth highlighted in pulsing red. The target. The heart of humanity's resistance. They are cornered, Admiral, murmured his adjutant, bowing low. Their colonies burn, their fleets are scattered. They have no defenses left worth naming. Varric did not answer at once. His upper set of eyes remained fixed on Earth, but the lower pair shifted toward the scrolling tactical data. The Empire had fought hundreds of wars. They had subjugated dozens of stubborn species. But these humans, these Terrans, had not broken, even after years of occupation and orbital bombardments. They will break, Varric said at last, his voice a low, resonant rasp. Once the Dreadnought is found and destroyed, the rest will follow. Their spirit is tied to that ship. Assuming it even exists, the adjutant said carefully. No one has seen it in. Varric turned his gaze sharply, silencing him. It exists. Our intelligence is never wrong. He let a cold smile creep across his features. And when it burns, humanity will know the futility of defiance. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered, unaware of the death that waited in their midst. On the other side of the planet, buried under 100 meters of reinforced concrete in the Colorado Rockies, humanity already knew. The Global Defense Command Center throbbed with activity. Rows of screens displayed incoming telemetry, Imperial ship positions, and countdown estimates for planetary engagement. Red warning lights bathed the room, and every face carried the same tight, pale look, the look of people staring down the end of their species. At the center of it all stood Sarah Blake, Director of Global Defense. Her brown hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, but exhaustion shadowed her eyes. She stood at the main holotable, her fingers tracing over the glowing shapes of the fleet that encircled Earth like a closing noose. How many ships? She asked, not looking up. 4,000, confirmed, said Captain Daniel Reeves, the officer at her side. His voice was steady, but there was a grim weight behind it. We count at least 30 heavy-class warcruisers. Carriers, escorts, the works. They're not here to blockade. They're here to end us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah exhaled, long and slow. Her throat felt dry. For months she had prepared for this moment, secretly hoping it would never come. And yet, here it was. Then we wake it up, she said quietly. Reeves blinked, surprised. You're sure about this? Sarah finally looked at him. Her expression was carved from stone. If we don't use it now, Daniel, we'll never get another chance. The Dreadnought project wasn't built to scare them. It was built to stop this exact thing. He hesitated. We never even tested it under full combat load. There's no telling what happens when. When we throw a 10-kilometer monster into a war zone? Sarah cut in, her voice sharp. Yes, I know the risks. But I'd rather roll the dice than dig graves for 8 billion people. Reeves stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Understood. Across the base, the command went out. Secure channels unlocked, cryptographic barriers fell. Somewhere, deep in the black silence of interstellar space, a pulse signal leapt from Earth like a beacon. And something very old, very dangerous, heard it. Far beyond the farthest planets, where no light from Earth reached, the USV Leviathan stirred in its tomb. It had been placed here deliberately, hidden in the orbit of a dead moon whose name no one bothered to remember. For 21 years, the ship had slept, drifting in silence, its reactors cold, its weapon bays sealed shut. But now, as the pulse signal struck its receiver, a low hum rippled through its hull. Power conduits glowed faint blue as colossal reactors shuddered awake. Dust and ice sublimated from its armor plates. One by one, kilometers of systems came back online: shield matrices, engine cores, spinal cannons. The Leviathan was not a ship in the traditional sense. It was a war platform, 10 kilometers of armored death, a mobile fortress bristling with guns larger than entire cruisers. When it had last gone to war, Imperial fleets had learned to whisper its name like a curse. And now, the monster was awake again. In the command cradle at the ship's heart, Commander Jack Hale opened his eyes. Cryosleep fogged his thoughts for a moment, and for a brief, disorienting second he wondered if the war was over, if perhaps this was some cruel dream. But the alarms told him otherwise. Cryosleep cycle complete, the ship's AI intoned in a calm, synthetic voice. Commander Hale, combat alert, priority 1. Earth has signaled full mobilization. Hale sat up, swinging his boots to the deck. His body ached with the strange soreness of thawing muscles, but his mind sharpened quickly. He'd been here before. So, he muttered, running a hand over his stubbled jaw, we're really doing this again. He stepped into the command chamber as crew members began to wake all around him, climbing from cryopods and rushing to their stations. The hum of the ship grew louder as drives engaged. Status? Hale barked. Reactor output at 70% and climbing, reported Lieutenant Kara Monroe, his weapons officer, already strapping into her chair. Shields online. All batteries locked and ready. Course to Sol? Plotted and burning, sir. Hale allowed himself one thin smile. Then let's go remind the galaxy what happens when you corner a Terran. The Leviathan's engines flared, brilliant as miniature suns, and the Dreadnought leapt toward Earth. Back at the Imperial fleet, sensors lit up like alarms. Admiral, a sensor officer cried on the hegemony sphere. Unidentified contact on the outer rim. Enormous mass signature inbound at relativistic speed. Varrix turned sharply, his 4 eyes narrowing. Show me. The holomap expanded, displaying the oncoming object. It was solitary, alone, but its size made even his warcruisers look like toys. They dare send a single ship? Varrix said coldly. Not a ship, murmured his adjutant, scanning the readings. Something else. No one spoke as the massive contact drew closer, casting a long shadow across the tactical display. And deep in the void, the Leviathan burned toward them, a black spear of vengeance, awakened from its slumber. The galaxy would never be the same. The USV Leviathan arrived like the slow turn of an apocalypse. Its massive shadow swallowed starlight as it dropped from relativistic speed, drives flaring white-hot. The Dreadnought's hull glimmered with the faint blue shimmer of recharged shields, its jagged silhouette dwarfing even the largest Imperial warcruiser. Sol system entry complete, reported Lieutenant Kara Monroe, her hands flying across her console. Her dark eyes burned with adrenaline. All weapons systems are online, Commander. Forward shields holding it full. Commander Jack Hale stood in the command cradle, boots braced against the subtle vibration of the deck. His gaze was fixed on the tactical hollow, a swarm of red contacts ahead, the Imperial fleet tightening its formation as if bracing for impact. He exhaled slowly. All right, Kara. Let's wake them up. Bring forward guns to combat ready. Target any ship that blinks at us the wrong way. Kara grinned, her fingers dancing. Already done. Across the Dreadnought, kilometers of armored gun batteries rotated into position. Missile silos rumbled open. The great spinal cannon, the weapon that had ended entire battles in a single shot, charged with a deep, thrumming hum that rattled the hull. On the hegemony sphere, panic spread like fire. They've powered weapons, shouted an officer. They're charging something. Energy spike is off the scale. Admiral Kale Varrix's 4 eyes locked on the colossal shape filling his viewscreen. His mandibles tightened. He had seen many warships in his life, but nothing like this. The Terran Dreadnought was huge, easily 3 times the size of his flagship. They dare challenge the Empire with a single vessel, growled Varrix. His voice was a low hiss, but it carried across the bridge. Show them our superiority. Order the fleet to fire. Space erupted. Thousands of plasma lances shot across the void, converging on the Leviathan in a storm of blinding light. The Dreadnought's shields flared blue as the energy slammed against them, the sheer power of the barrage enough to vaporize an entire moon. Forward shields absorbing. Kara shouted, eyes wide. Energy bleed minimal, they can't even get through our first layer. Good, Hale said, his voice cold as steel. Return fire. The Leviathan's main gun spoke. A single beam of white-hot energy lashed out, cutting across the void with terrifying precision. It punched through 3 Imperial cruisers in a single shot, tearing them apart as if they were made of paper. The resulting explosion lit the darkness like a false dawn. Direct hits. Kara cried, grinning like a wolf. 3 kills with 1 shot. Keep firing, Hale ordered. No mercy. All along the Leviathan's hull, batteries thundered to life. Mass driver rounds streaked across the void at hypersonic speed, slamming into Imperial destroyers and ripping them in half. Missile pods unleashed swarms of smart warheads, each one hunting down targets with merciless precision. The Imperial formation faltered as explosions blossomed like fiery flowers. Inside the hegemony's sphere, chaos reigned. Shields failing. Losses at 20% and climbing. We can't hold this position. Varrix's 4 hands gripped the command rail. His cold, mirrored eyes widened as one ship after another winked out on the tactical display. This is impossible, he muttered. No single vessel carries that much firepower. But impossible or not, it was happening. On the Leviathan, Kara let out a laugh as another destroyer disintegrated under a barrage of railgun fire. Sir, they're breaking formation. Good, Hale said. His expression was grim, but there was no mistaking the satisfaction in his voice. They thought they were the predators. Time to teach them who they're hunting. He turned toward the helm officer. Advance. Full pursuit. The Dreadnought surged forward, drives burning bright. Every kilometer it closed turned the battle into a slaughter. Admiral. Varrix's adjutant shouted. They're advancing. They'll overrun the fleet. Varrix bared his teeth. He was not a coward, but he was not a fool either. Signal all ships, he commanded. Fall back to the jump gate. Form a defensive line, we must at least preserve the carriers. But the Leviathan was not about to let them run. Target their retreat corridor, Hale said, his voice as sharp as a blade. Cripple the fast movers first. The spinal cannon fired again. The beam speared through space, striking the lead elements of the retreating fleet. A warcruiser exploded into a blazing halo of molten metal, fragments spinning wildly through formation. Fighters scrambled from the carriers in a desperate attempt to cover the retreat, but they were swatted down by the Dreadnought's automated point defense batteries, hundreds of tiny guns tracking and vaporizing targets faster than human reflexes could follow. Enemy fighter screen neutralized, Kara reported with grim satisfaction. Keep pressing, Hale said. We don't let them regroup. By the time the fleet neared the jump gate at the system's edge, nearly half of the Empire's ships were gone, glowing wreckage scattered like gravestones across the void. For the first time in his career, Admiral Varrix felt something cold coil in his chest. Fear. This ship, he whispered. This monster, it is not fighting. It is erasing us. On Earth, Director Sarah Blake stood in the command center, eyes fixed on the holofeed. The Leviathan's every strike played out in real time, glowing markers winking out as enemy ships died. Captain Reeves stood beside her, stunned. My God, he murmured. We're not just winning. We're dominating them. Sarah's jaw tightened. Good, she said. Then we don't stop. If this is the message we're sending to the galaxy, it has to be unmistakable. Get me a line to Hale. Moments later, Hale's hologram flickered into view. He was calm, but sweat gleamed on his temple, the look of a man who had just stared down the abyss and walked away alive. Director, he said. you're seeing this? We are, Sarah replied. Jack, finish it. Don't let a single ship escape if you can help it. Hale nodded once. Understood. We'll make it clear Earth is not to be trifled with. The Leviathan accelerated once more, its hull glowing with the heat of its own fury. The remaining Imperial ships had no choice but to flee, but the Dreadnought followed like a predator scenting blood. The battle for Sol was no longer a fight for survival. It had become an execution. The void was burning. Imperial wreckage drifted like shattered bones, their fires reflecting in the cold hull of the USV Leviathan as it closed on the survivors. For hours, the Dreadnought had chased them, hammering their retreat with relentless, precision strikes. The Imperial fleet, once a perfectly ordered war machine, was now a trail of broken hulls and dying signals stretching from Sol's orbit to the jump gate at the system's edge. Commander Jack Hale stood at the center of the command cradle, one hand resting on the railing as the tactical holo painted the scene before him in chilling red. Less than a third of the Imperial fleet remained, most of them limping, shields flickering. Admiral Varrix's flagship is holding near the jump gate, reported Lieutenant Cara Monroe, her voice low and feral. They're trying to cover the last of their retreat. Hale's jaw tightened. The last time the Empire had come to Earth, they had glassed human colonies from orbit and laughed while doing it. He still remembered the images: oceans boiling, cities turned to ash, children left screaming under alien skies. Helm, Hale said, voice cold, take us straight through them. Bring main gun to ready. On the hegemony sphere, Admiral Cale Varrix stared at the tactical displays, his hands digging grooves into the railing. The once mighty Imperial Armada was disintegrating before his eyes. He could feel the morale of his crews breaking, could hear the edge of panic in every status report. They are not a species, he muttered bitterly, they are a plague. His adjutant hesitated, mandibles twitching. Admiral, perhaps we should transmit a ceasefire signal. At least negotiate. Varrix turned sharply, four mirrored eyes blazing. Negotiate with predators? With butchers? His voice was a guttural snarl. No. If we survive, we warn the Corps. We raise every fleet, every fortress. This terror must be crushed before it spreads. Another officer's voice cut through the bridge. Admiral, the Dreadnought is accelerating. Intercept in 90 seconds. Varrix straightened. His decision was made. Then we buy time for those who can escape. All ships, form a line and hold. To the last. The Leviathan surged forward, its engines burning like a miniature star. Multiple war cruisers ahead, forming a screen, Cara reported. Good, Hale said, his voice flat. Weapons free. Break them. The Dreadnought fired first. Its spinal cannon unleashed a blinding lance of light, carving through the warcruiser screen like a hot knife through ice. 3 ships went up at once, their shockwaves cascading into nearby escorts. The Leviathan did not slow, plowing through the expanding cloud of wreckage as its secondary batteries roared to life. Missiles streaked from its bays, painting the void with contrails of fire. Railguns hammered relentlessly, each impact tearing holes in Imperial hulls the size of buildings. On the hegemony sphere, klaxons wailed. Shields collapsing. We've lost contact with the forward line. Carrier ascendancy destroyed. Varrix gritted his teeth. Focus all fire on their forward shields. Bring down that monster before it reaches us. His fleet obeyed, unleashing one final, desperate volley. Plasma lances, torpedoes, and beam weapons slammed into the Leviathan's shimmering shields. For a brief moment, its glow faltered, but then its systems rebalanced, and the Dreadnought emerged from the barrage untouched, its guns still firing. Cara's console lit up with targeting confirmations. They're giving us everything they've got. Shields holding at 70%. Hale's eyes narrowed. Then let's end this. He stepped forward, voice like iron. All batteries, full salvo. The Leviathan's entire arsenal spoke at once. Dozens of warheads struck simultaneously, detonating across the Imperial line in a chain of apocalyptic fireballs. Fragments of molten hull spun through space, glowing like meteors. The Dreadnought's spinal cannon carved one last beam straight through the hegemony's spear. For one heartbeat, the Imperial flagship held together, then it exploded, its core going up in a brilliant white flare. The light washed over the surviving fleet, silhouetting them against the void as the shockwave tore through formation. When the light faded, the battle was over. No Imperial ships remained combat-capable. The few that had survived the blast drifted powerlessly, venting atmosphere and fuel into the dark. On the Leviathan, silence fell over the bridge. Kara finally exhaled. Admiral's ship is gone. No more fleet contacts. It's over, Commander. Hale's shoulders sank slightly, the weight of command pressing down on him all at once. He nodded slowly. Stand down from Red Alert. Begin rescue sweeps for any human survivors from previous battles. Leave the Imperials where they are. His tone was grim, but there was no triumph in it. Only finality. Back on Earth, in the Colorado Command Center, the holofeed shifted from red to green. Cheers erupted around the room, some of them ragged, some full of tears. Captain Reeves let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. God help me, Sarah. I think we just changed the galaxy. Director Sarah Blake didn't cheer. She stood very still, staring at the map where thousands of enemy ships had once been. Humanity had not just survived. It had sent a message that would echo through the stars. Get me Hale, she said quietly. His hologram appeared moments later, his face pale but steady. Director. Enemy fleet neutralized. 0 survivors. Sarah nodded. Good work, Commander. But you know this isn't the end. They'll send more bigger fleets, more desperate measures. Hale gave a thin smile. Then we'll be ready. The Leviathan's awake now. And I don't think it plans on going back to sleep. In the days that followed, Imperial relays carried news of the disaster back to the core worlds. The reports were unbelievable. One ship had annihilated an entire battle fleet. Worlds that had never heard of Earth now whispered its name in fear. The Dreadnought was no longer a rumor. It was a specter that haunted Imperial admirals' dreams. Some called it a weapon. Others called it a monster. But all of them agreed on one thing. Humanity had crossed a line. Far out in deep space, the Leviathan drifted silently, its guns cooling, its hull scarred but unbroken. In its command cradle, Hale stood at the observation deck, watching distant starlight glint off the wreckage fields. Kara joined him, her usual grin gone, replaced by something quieter, more reflective. We just took on the galaxy's biggest empire, she said softly. And won. Hale's eyes stayed on the stars. We didn't just win, Kara. We showed them what we are. She was silent for a long moment. And what are we? Hale turned, his expression hard. A species they can't afford to fight but won't dare leave alone. He glanced back out into the dark, where distant suns flickered like watchful eyes. Let them come, he said. And in the vastness of space, the Leviathan waited, a black spear pointed at the heart of the galaxy.